Hello and welcome to Pickles Garage for another tool review. Today we are actually going to be working on an expander stretcher tool for an exhaust. So essentially what this is if you're replacing a component of the exhaust, most of the time it's cinched up, and so it creates a ridge on the inside, and then when you try and put a new one in, it doesn't have anywhere to go. The other case, you might just want to be adjusting the size of the exhaust for, out the back, tailpipe, things like that. So my specific need for this is going to be related to that first example of where I'm trying to replace a catalytic converter on a vehicle, and I need to remove the ridge and kind of open it up a little bit, and hopefully this is going to do that for me. So where I got this on Amazon. There's a lot of different examples. This is actually the more expensive version. I think this was about like $70. The reason why I went with the more expensive one is because I'm actually sort of running out of time on my need for this, and I already attempted to go to my local auto parts store who did have a version of this in order for me to rent, but it showed up and it was completely broken. And I'll explain how their design was versus this. And just bearing in mind, if you do rent one, you're going to want to inspect it carefully because these break fairly easily. A lot of the reviews, not this one specifically, but mention you only get 1 or 2 uses out of it, maybe 3. And I think it's really just because of that really poor design. So this one is designed a lot better. Essentially, what you have here is you have each of your components for different sizes of exhaust, and you'll get a document that can tell you each of the sizes, and so you know that you're not going to like crack your specific exhaust because you're using the right one naturally. And so the design of this is basically this part comes off. I'm gonna try and do this one-handed. Bought a tripod and I still never use it. It does come with grease. You are going to want to use that. That's extremely important. I feel like that's part of the reason why people destroy their threads and whatnot, is because they don't grease it up. And if you don't grease it up, you're gonna create a lot of friction and whatnot. There's just a million threads on this apparently. Almost there. There we go. All right, so basically you have kind of needle bearing right in here, right? And that presses against there. And if you look at the chart, what you're gonna do is you're gonna grab this one, right, this inner piece, and that has a square. And so the square is actually going on this, and you'll see as it comes into contact and closer, it expands, right? And so that is gonna go on next. Has a circle on the one side. You just gotta pretend you're 5 again. And what you're gonna do is you're going to pick which of these is the size that you need. So I'm going to use this one, right? And so we're gonna go ahead and put this on top. And then with grease, once again, on the threads and everything, this is gonna go back on here. And so as this tightens, this will expand, but you'll notice it is going to expand from this side first. And so keep in mind that if you want to expand all of it, you can, and you can put it all in at once. But if you're just trying to do a very specific region, you just need to get this part wherever that is. And so that's the design of this. This is very rugged, and I like that part of it. The other ones that I had rented, basically it was almost like 2 pieces like this kind of giant washer here, except they had like ridges and mountains. And so because those were squishing together, it was kind of equally opening both sides. But the issue is it was even thinner than this. And so as this was pulling together and sandwiching, people were, impacting the hell out of it, and then that farthest one just started crumbling, and it just wasn't a very good design. So that one I think was like a $40 or $50 range one. Like I said, this was more of like a $70 range one, and so I can already tell just from the design that this is going to be a much better option for me, but it is kind of interesting. Now, like I said, I got this on Amazon, and what you will find, and I mentioned this in my other tool review videos as well, is a lot of people will use this one time and then they'll return it. A lot of the reviews of this specific one said that the one that showed up was used. This one was not used from what I can tell. I know it has some scrapes, but that's only because I've been kind of trialing with it first. So keep that in mind, that you might end up getting one that has been used, but someone even reviewed and said that the one that showed up was used, damaged, and it still worked. So I think just the simple design of this is actually going to be pretty great in general. So I think this one is worth the risk. And so the other ones, like I said, had very similar designs to the one that I had rented at the auto parts store, and it just did not work. So we're gonna go ahead and dive into this. You are gonna need an impact. I know technically you can just get a socket on that and twist it, but you're not gonna have the room, you're not gonna be able to get the torque out of it that you need, and it's just gonna be a pain. So unfortunately, you are going to need an impact. Now the socket size on this one specifically, and you are going to want to get an impact specific socket, is 26. That's the size that worked best for the one that I got. Yours might be a little different unless you buy this exact kit. So I'm going back and forth on whether I show you the actual impact of it, just because it does make a ridiculous noise. But basically what this is going to do is this is just going to slide into the opening of the exhaust, and as it tightens, I'm going to impact it, and that will expand it. So let's go ahead and start that. So at this point, it's actually stuck in here, right? Because it expanded, but it's now stuck. And so I think it's because that other piece back here is wedged inside, and that's kind of still putting tension, and there's just too much friction. So I have it slightly threaded here, right? And so it should only be connected to that back piece. And I'm gonna go ahead and tap it. So I'm gonna keep working on it, get a little bit, and then I'll get it pulled out. So you can see there's still this crack right here, and that's just because there's still all the tension. So if you look down, you'll see that back piece is pretty firmly wedged. So I was thinking I could probably, hit it to pop it out that way, but it is extremely wedged, and all it's doing is moving all of this back. So instead, I'm gonna try and poke in there and poke out that rear piece. That should alleviate the tension on this, making it slightly smaller, and then I can pull out the centerpiece, and then the whole thing should come out. So far that's the only drawback. I do think because I was attempting to do it all at once, I made it a little bit harder. I think if you start with maybe the front and then walk your way back, it's probably a little bit better. But we're gonna go ahead and pull out that secondary piece and hopefully get this unstuck here. So I brought a handful of tools, but ultimately just getting a few threads on this, just so you don't go too deep and continue to expand this, and then just tapping on it with the hammer. Eventually the whole thing slid back, and then I was able to get it piece by piece. So that did do pretty well for actually expanding it. I think I'm going to try and get the actual ridge here of where this originally was. But I think as far as the rear is concerned, it expanded perfectly. So let me now readjust so that it's only about that deep maybe, because as you're expanding it, it is actually expanding the one side more first, which ultimately is kind of a design flaw, but it's the best you're gonna get. So let me do that, get that last bit of expanding, hit it with the impact, and then hopefully I'll be able to give you a positive result. And there we go, perfect fit. So we're good to cinch it up. Now, I will say a lot of people at this point would return these, and I know for a lot of people this might be the only time they ever use it. They might just have like a one-time use, but there's nothing worse than buying a new part and it coming used and damaged. I've seen a lot of people in their reviews have said that when it showed up, it was damaged, and it even still worked at that point. But I mean, realistically, you don't want to put that on someone else. So I don't know if you want to sell it or store it away or whatever you need to do. But try not to return these. This worked fantastic. It was way better than anything else I was able to find. It was fast. You'll definitely need the impact, but I would say this is a perfect tool. So thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.